All right, so I have opened the Cube ISO demo file, and you'll see there is just a room that's loading. It's loading that shading view right now, the material preview view. So I can see the scene there. Let's see. I'm actually going to pop open a new tab. I'm going to go to General. I'm going to have my Layout tab. This is my favorite tab to get around. And I'm also going to open in the General and Shading tab, another favorite tab of mine. And we'll have that here. And the first thing I want to do is, if I look at the rendered view mode, I'm going to go to Render Properties first, make sure that Cycles is on GPU compute. I have a RTX 3080, so I want to make full use of that. Make sure that the Cycles rendering engine is on, and then I'm going to go to the rendered view. And I'm going to see that there's no environment texture right now. So when I look through this window, I'm seeing that kind of Tron empty space that Homer Simpson saw, right? So I want to first get an environment texture for this ISO room. And what's really nice about this demo file is, you can learn a lot of 3D basics, a lot of Blender basics using this file. And again, I'll tell everyone this: if you haven't done the Blender Donut series, that is definitely where you want to go as a beginner with Blender. Definitely do that series. Highly recommend it. I will put a link in the description below on how to get there and do that series. But if that series was a little confusing at points, I'm hoping that this video series will kind of clear up any questions or really solidify that knowledge that you learned from that series. And so one awesome resource for textures, models, and HDRIs is Polyhaven. This site is amazing, and it's great for Blender beginners because you can just get some 3D assets, bring them in, play with them, learn Blender. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find an HDRI that I want for this scene. So for my ISO scene, I'm going to look for an outdoor scene. I'm going to see if there's any snow. Oh, there is. That's amazing. I'm going to get something cool and snowy. And I'm going to go with Snowy Field. So I'm going to download this HDRI, and I'm going to pull that into Blender. So I'm going to go to my Shading tab. I'm using my scroll wheel to zoom in and out. I'm clicking my scroll wheel, kind of rotating it to rotate around, holding Shift, hit my scroll wheel to kind of pan around. And I can see that I need an HDRI, so I'm going to go down here where it says Object. I'm going to hit World, and I'm going to want to add a environment texture. So right now there is already some neat environment textures already there, and these are all nodes. So it's like reading a line of logic code. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight everything, and I'm just going to hit the delete key because I want my own HDRI added. And I'm going to go to Add, and I'm going to go to World Output, and this is let me zoom in a little bit here. This is what's going to be outputted into the scene. Go to Add, Search. I'm going to hit Background. I'm going to add a background node. Also going to search environment texture. Add that. And then I'm going to search mapping and texture coordinate. So every node, there's only so many nodes, and they're all under here, under their different categories. So if there's color nodes, texture nodes, I'm just searching nodes. I already know what nodes I need to build that texture coordinate in the world, and world output is one of those. That's going to be the world output. The names of the nodes are what they are, right? I mean, they're pretty straightforward for the most part. And so, what each of these nodes are doing. So you have a texture coordinate that's being generated. I'm bringing it over here to the vector, so there's a location for that texture coordinate. I'm attaching that to a HDRI photo, which I just downloaded, so it's on my desktop, the snowy field, right? That's going to be the photo. I'm tying that to the background, so instead of a color, it's going to be that photo, and we're going to output it to the world surface. So now that I've done that, I can hit that rendered view, and we can see that our snowy field has showed up, right? So it is now the HDRI. Think of it as a bubble around our 3D scene. So our 3D scene is inside a bubble, and that HDRI is like a sphere, right? That sphere is surrounding our 3D model. But what's really cool about that is when we look through the window, we're going to see a snowy field, right? So if you have that ISO view that we have, it's going to be a snowy field. But from that ISO angle, the snowy field, it's not very good for this ISO view. But if you were to look directly through the window, right, if you were to take a photo or a 3D render from this view, it doesn't look so bad. And it looks like you're looking out a window into a snowy field, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to keep that as my world output. I'm now going to go back to the layout view, and I want to add my YouTube channel logo to this room. So you can import and export 3D files in Blender. Just use the File tab up top. Right now, I'm going to import an STL because I used Fusion 360. I made a STL file, and I made the Sigma Engineering logo. So here it is in 3D. I just brought in that STL file, and so here is my YouTube channel logo. I'm going to hit R for rotate since it is selected. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees in the Z-axis. So let me hit escape. I'm going to hit R, hit the Z-axis, hit 90, and now I've rotated it 90 degrees in the Z-axis. And what's really cool about bringing in a 3D model or an STL is, you can find STLs online anywhere. You could just go to Thingiverse, right? Download any STL file you find there and just bring it into Blender. So let's do that real quick, because I made this in Fusion, but maybe you don't have Fusion and you want to bring in an asset into this ISO room. So let's pause and go to Thingiverse really quickly. So I'm at Thingiverse, and if you're into 3D printing, Thingiverse is a great site to find STLs that you can 3D print. And so what I want to do is I want to find something cool and Star Wars related. The Mandalorian, obviously, that's the best choice. So this Mandalorian miniature, that looks really cool. This is a really neat STL file. Let's bring this in to our Blender scene. Download files, all right. So that's downloading. Let's get that and import it into our ISO room. So I'm going to go to File, Import, STL. I'm going to go to my desktop, find that Mandalorian miniature, go to Files, and let's see. Bring it in. And we can see it is humongous. And our ISO room is now just just covered in a giant STL file. The Mandalorian, he's pretty gigantic. So I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to hit the S key for scale. I'm just going to move my mouse, pan it, and shrink Mr. Mandalorian. Zoom back in. Press S for scale. Zoom to Mandalorian. And even with scale, if I hit S for scale, I can hit Z. I can scale in the Z axis. Make him a mini Keanu Reeves. I can press escape to stop that. S, X axis. You can scale him in the X, Z, Y, etc. So you can scale in any direction you want. If you just hit S and scale, it's going to be in all 3 dimensions. So we're just shrinking Mando here. And we're going to grab him and just kind of put him out of the way for now. I'm going to grab my logo, and you can even find logos on Thingiverse if you'd like. I'm going to grab that and just press, let's see, X. Bring it over to this wall and bring it up a little bit. Move it to the right a little bit. I think that looks pretty good. And now we want to open our asset browser because this file has a bunch of assets built in. So if we move our mouse in the top left, you'll see the editor type here. You can change your editor type by just clicking this drop down. But I'm going to move my mouse a little bit to the left. I'm going to see a little like plus icon. And if I hold and click and pull to the right, I have now opened a new window within this single window in Blender. And you can pull this window out if you have multiple screens. You can have multiple windows of Blender. But I usually like just working in one window. I don't know why that is. And I'm going to click on this editor type. I'm going to go to the asset browser. And in this file, there's all this cool stuff built in, which is why this is a great beginner file to play with. I'm going to bring in a desk. I'm going to set it, just drag and drop it into the scene. And I can see my desk. It didn't do very well. I'm going to rotate it in the y-axis, 90 degrees, negative 90, excuse me. So now it's straight up. I'm going to grab that, pull in the X by pressing X. Zoom in a bit, press G, press Z, pull it down a bit. That looks good. And press G, press Y, and then kind of pull it in this direction a bit. And now I'm moving my desk in that direction, and then press G, press X, pull it towards the wall. That looks pretty good. And so we have our cool little YouTube logo there. We have Mando. I'm going to click on Mando. I'm going to hit R for rotate, Z in the Z axis, press 90. And rotate him 90, press enter, and then I'm going to press G, just kind of grab him, move him this way. And if you hit G, if you have a middle mouse button, if you hit G and you hold the middle mouse button, you can kind of lock it into different axes by moving your mouse around. So if I just pan the mouse to the right a little bit, he's now locked into the X axis, and I can pull him in that direction. So I don't have to hit X every time. This is just something I do. And you're going to find that within Blender, there are many ways to skin a cat, many ways to do things, and I'll try to cover as much as I can, and at least explain it as I go through this. So I'm going to hit S. I'm going to pull down. I'm going to scale Mando down a bit. I'm going to zoom in. I think that's a pretty good size. Press G, press Z, grab him, pull him in the Z axis. GZ. Make sure he's on the table. GX, press G, press X. And then kind of put him in the corner of the desk. GY, move him over here. And then, you know, I don't like that he's at a perfect angle, so I'm just going to press R for rotate, Z, and then I'm going to move my mouse a little bit and just kind of rotate him so he looks more realistic. Just a cool figurine sitting on the table there. And then you'll see that there's no texture on Mando. And if I click on Mando, I can see if I scroll down in my scene collection here, he ended up in Studio Assets, which is fine. I'm actually going to, just to keep organized in here, I'm going to right click on Scene Collection. I'm going to say New Collection. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to see Collection 5. This is my new collection. This is new stuff. So I'm going to call it New Stuff. I'm going to drag my Mandalorian asset into that collection. And I'm going to drag my Sigma Engineering logo into that new stuff collection. And what's really cool about collections in Blender is that if there's just a bunch of gunk in the way and I'm really only focused on Mando here, I can pull up all these collections and I can say hide in the viewport. Let's just ignore those for now and let's just focus on that new stuff. So you'll see that only the new stuff is showing. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to just pull this to the side so we can kind of zoom in a little bit. And so we have Mando here. This is an STL file we brought in. I'm going to click on Mando, and we'll see that we're currently in object mode. There's a bunch of other modes that you can have. I'm going to go in edit mode and just show off this STL. I mean, what is an STL, right? It's basically just a 3D model made of triangles. That's all it is. And, you know, if you feed this STL file to a 3D printer, it compiles what they call G-code to 3D print it, right? So it just says, okay, I see the STL. This is how I print it, right? Well, now that this STL is in Blender, we're now looking at, you know, the makeup of this 3D model. This is the detail that is in our 3D model. So all those pixels are here. You know, this is what makes our 3D model, and we can actually edit this in Blender if we don't like a certain thing. We can also add to it in Blender, which is pretty sweet. And we can modify. So if we wanted to just click and drag and just select that part of the model, right? We can press G to grab it, and we can pull it in crazy directions, right? So if I press that, I'm going to let go. I'm going to go back to object mode. We just made our model look very strange, right? Because we have really just started editing the details of it. So I'm going to hit Control Z and just kind of undo what I did. Or go to edit and undo or redo, right? And you can do different things. If I don't like the base, right, I can just look head on. I'm going to click here, look head on at our Mandalorian. I'm going to remove the base. So I'm going to just lasso, just drag, click and drag, and select just the base of Mandalorian. And it is kind of difficult to do. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. So just the base. And then I'm going to hit the delete key. And it's going to say, do you want to delete the vertices, edges, faces, dissolve them? I'm just going to delete the vertices. So all those lines you see, let's just get rid of them. And I'm going to hit the middle mouse button, pan over. You can see what I've deleted, and I've got more to delete. I'm going to go back to that view in the y-axis. I'm going to select it again, hit delete, delete those vertices. And I still see some more. I see some lines there. Delete those vertices. I'm going to keep doing this until it's gone. Get a different angle on that. Delete those vertices. Different angle. Delete those. Delete this. So I want to remove those little, clean up those loose vertex lines that are on the bottom. So I'm actually going to go up here. There's 3 different selections. You can do a vertex select, an edge select, or a face select. I'm going to do the vertex select. And now I can see those vertices now have little dots. I'm going to clean those up, because I don't want to see those. Alright, that looks pretty good. And now I'm going to go to edit mode. I'm going to go back to object mode. And we can see that we've successfully modified this STL that we downloaded. We removed the base from it. So if you were going to modify an object from that site to 3D print, that is one way you can do it in Blender, right? We're just getting rid of some of that information. So now that we have an awesome version of the Mandalorian there, I'm going to click on him, make sure he's selected, click on our material properties. I'm going to say new. Let's add a material. And actually, I could make my own material, but there are some pretty sweet materials in our asset browser. So I'm going to go to this submenu of materials, and let's add teal porcelain. Just drag and drop to our Mandalorian STL here. And I can see some, pixelation there. It's just based on the STL. I'm going to right click on him. I'm going to say shade smooth just in case. It may help, may not. So I just right clicked on that model, hit shade smooth, and I can already see, yeah, that looks much better. So we have this sweet porcelain Mandalorian. He's on our table, and obviously we can't see right now. I'm going to go to the Cycles viewport shading just to see what Mando would look like. And that's pretty awesome. So we have Mando in a snowy environment. That's just cool. So I'm going to go back, go to the Sigma Engineering logo. I'm going to give that just a property that I make. So I'm going to go to Material Properties. I'm going to say New. And there's many different types of material properties you can add. It defaults to Principled BSDF. But there are others we can choose as well. For this one, I'm going to choose emission because I want it to kind of glow a bit. And I'm going to have it glow a cool green color. I think that's what I want. No, purple. Yeah, purple is pretty cool too. Hard to say. Or a teal. No, we already have teal. So maybe purple. So I'm going to roll the color wheel to the purple color. The strength of this emission is 1. If you change it, make it higher, it's going to have more emission. And if I go to that Cycles render view, it's going to have this kind of bright look to it. I'm going to go back to the shaded view. And that looks pretty good. And let's make sure we can view everything in our viewport real quick. Let's take a look at that, what it looks like. And let's hit F12. Let's actually not hit F12. Let's go to a more instead of hitting F12 to render the image, I'm just going to go to Render and Render Image. But before I do that, I'm going to hit my output properties. I am pulling out a PNG from this. Has all the properties here. Resolution 124 by 124, that's fine. Cycles engine, click, this is if you just hover over stuff, it tells you what it is. Render properties, I'm going to go to render, 32 samples, that's fine. Denoiser, I usually have that on. And it helps it from being kind of grainy when you make a render. So I'm going to go to render, I'm going to go to render image. I'm just going to click on that, and now it is rendering. So we should see our ISO room here in a few minutes. And you'll see that, it's calculating light paths right now. And so, I have a pretty robust video card, so it does help in this operation. And we're going to see our room coming together. So as that's rendering, I can see that I really don't like that emission on the logo there. But just kind of wanted to see what it would look like, and so I'm going to change that. Let's make it a cool black color. So again, you can just drag and drop stuff. And then I'm going to go back to all. I'm going to find some more stuff to put in my ISO room, like a computer. Definitely want to add some curtains here. Press G to grab them, pull them in the Y direction. So hit Y, pull those in. Press G, press C, pull those down, press Z, press X, move them in the X direction, kind of center that a bit, so it looks centered, looks like it's off the wall, so press Y, bring it to the wall. Okay, that doesn't look good at all. Press Y, bring it forward. Awesome. So at least from, if I hit the, so I understand I'm hitting numpad 0 to get that ISO view. This is the camera view, the active camera view. and hit 0 again on the numpad to get out of the active camera view. If I actually find my camera, so it is somewhere in here. Let's find it. Maybe common. Yeah, there's the camera. So if I hit camera, I can see that this is the camera. You'll see that it's showing the direction it's facing, so I can move that camera if I wanted to. And so with the camera that's in here, I found it here. I am just going to delete that for now. And I'm going to add, click the add button up here. I'm going to go to camera. And I just added the camera. And it is the active camera right now. It's probably going to be under new stuff. I'm going to press G to grab that. And I'm just going to pull that where I want it for now. But I'm going to kind of angle this up. So I kind of like that angle that it was at in the viewport. And I'm going to select the camera, and then I'm going to make my current view the active view. So to align this camera that I just put in there to my active view, I'm just going to click on the camera. I'm going to click view. I'm going to go down to align view and align active camera to view, which you can see is Control Alt numpad 0. You may not have that numpad, so here's the kind of more manual way to do it. I'm going to click that, and then I can see what my render is going to look like. So if I went to render image, which again is F12, we're going to see our cube diorama, our room, come together as an image. And so that's pretty cool. And so now I kind of see what that looks like. I'm going to hit numpad 0, get out of that. I want to just, instead of doing the ISO view, I really just want like a view of the room like this, just a cozy like Christmas winter scene or something, right? And so I'm going to click my cameras. This is the active camera. I'm going to go to view, align active camera to view, and then I can see what it's rendering. I'm going to go to focal length. I'm going to just click on focal length, and you can manually change it. You can double click it, and you could say 45 millimeters. But I can also just click in this box with a single left mouse click, and then just drag left. And if you drag left and right on stuff in Blender menus, you can change it very quickly. So I'm going to drag it left, pull out a bit, just pull that focal length out, and you can choose perspective, orthographic, panoramic, etc. I'm just going to do perspective view, and I changed the focal length. I'm also going to go to my settings. I'm going to make that 2000. Why not? Sorry, 800. And then I'm going to go to render image. Take a look at what it looks like. Oh, that's cool. And that is our 3D scene that's coming together. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to pause for a minute, and then I'm going to just start putting stuff in the room, making my scene the way I want it to look. And so a note on the asset browser, if I expand this a little bit and Okay, and I think it looks pretty good. So again, I'm going to hover my mouse. I'm going to see that plus sign up here on the two windows. I'm going to click, drag to the left, and then I'm going to see the highlighted window that's going to stay there, and the dark window is going to go away. And so I'm going to get rid of that. So now that I've kind of decorated the room, I'm going to go to the view, and then view the camera. So that's viewpoint. So this is what it's going to render, right? It's going to render that a little bit. And so I kind of want to get the easel in there and get more of the room. So I'm going to just leave this, just move my middle mouse button, zoom out. I'm going to kind of zoom out a little bit, maybe like something like there. I'm going to go to view, align view, active camera to view. I can see that I don't want to get the edges here. I really just want the room. So I'm going to kind of get it just right where I just have the room and not the outside edges. That looks pretty good to me. And now I'm going to render it. For me, I'm going to hit F12. And the room I just made is being rendered as we speak. That is really cool. So it's a cool winter scene. Okay, so that is done rendering now. Looks pretty cool. Have a winter scene in the back. Have a small cozy room here with our Mandalorian figurine and our cool logo. I'm going to go to this image, and I'm going to save this image. I'm just going to hit save it on the desktop. I'm going to call it really cool image because it is really cool. I'm going to save that image, close that, and then I can see that I have a very cool image. I'm going to set that as my desktop background because it's really cool. And now I have this really cool Mandalorian cozy snowy room desktop background. And so we've pretty much covered a lot of the basics of Blender. I'm still in the layout viewport view. I'm kind of zooming in and out. I'm looking at different objects. I'm bringing them in. In the next video, we're going to bring the real Mandalorian into this scene, not just an STL. And we're going to pose Mandalorian to be maybe painting or something, or using this computer, right? So I'm going to save this render, or this blender, excuse me, this blender file. I'm going to call it room example. And so this is going to be, I'm not going to save the direct download from Blender. So I'm going to save that. And in the next video, we're going to import some characters, and we're going to learn about bone structures, and we're going to kind of set up a scene and render characters in a scene, such as this room we just made. And we'll also kind of dig and do a deeper dive into the shading viewport, and how to understand how nodes work, and basically like for something like this wood, this porcelain. So go to object, go to this white porcelain. If I kind of zoom in a little bit, you'll see the nodes that make this. And really, it's just a white color, or a different color for this, and this wood color, etc. So we'll dig into those as well, and that'll be the next video. So I hope you all learned a few things about Blender, some basics, and look forward to learning more in the next video. Thanks for watching.